we'll be discussing the methods of primary research, which are divided into qualitative research and quantitative research. Qualitative research is the research into the in-depth motivation behind consumer buying behavior or opinions, and it should discover the motivational factors behind consumer buying habits, while quantitative research is research that leads into numerical results that can be statistically analyzed. Qualitative research branches out into focus groups, and focus groups are a group of people who are asked about their attitude towards a product, service, advertisement, or new style of packaging. In this method, questions are asked and participants have the chance to discuss their responses with other group members, while there are researchers present who stimulate this conversation. It is a widely used method to receive feedback before these products or services or such and such are launched into the market. It is believed that this method is more accurate and realistic than the responses to individual interviews or questionnaires, since the option of discussion is available. There are possible drawbacks to this, and these include wasting time, as conversation could be taken off the rails and the group members can start talking about anything else. The information can be difficult to analyze because of the qualitative nature, and it could be hard to present this to senior managers. And there is also the possibility that the researchers that are present to stimulate this conversation can influence these people, and it won't be their actual opinion, it can be something that was influenced by these researchers. And quantitative research is divided into observation and recording, test marketing, and consumer surveys. Observation and recording is where market researchers observe and record how consumers behave. They can count the number of people or cars that pass a particular location to find the best spot to place their business, and also observe consumers at shops to see how many look at a new display or take a product from the shelves. However, results could be distorted if the people being watched become aware of it and modify their behavior. And there is no place for researchers to ask about their behavior, which could be a downfall. Also, a simple inventory check could be used to record sales. While test marketing involves promoting and selling a product in a limited area and then recording consumer reactions and sales figures. This can take place after a decision to produce a limited quantity of a new product, but before a full-scale national launch. For this to be accurate, the region must reflect the social and consumer profiles of the rest of the country as closely as possible. Doing this reduces the risk of a new product launch failing, but the evidence can not always be accurate if the characteristics are not shared between the total population. Consumer surveys involve directly asking consumers or potential consumers for their opinions and preferences. They can be used to obtain both qualitative and quantitative research. There are 4 important issues for market researchers to be aware of when conducting consumer surveys. 1. Who to ask. Given that it's almost impossible or too expensive to survey all potential members of a target market, it is necessary to select a person that serves as a sample that reflects this population closely. 2. What to ask. The construction of an unbiased and unambiguous question is essential for it to be useful. 3. How to ask. Should it be through a post, through a telephone survey, a face-to-face session? 4. How accurate is it? Assessing the likely accuracy and validity of the results is a crucial element of a market research survey.
Okay, so we have 3 different quantitative research techniques. The first one is observation and recording, the second one is test marketing, and the third one is consumer survey. Okay, so using this first approach, researchers observe and record how customers behave. For example, they count the number of people and cars that pass a particular location in order to assess the best site for the new business. Another example is that researchers can observe people in shops to see how many they look at the new display or take a product from the shops. And or just a simple inventory check can also be used to record sales over a period of time. But the results can be distorted if people are aware of being watched and may behave differently because of this. Second approach, test marketing, can take place after a decision has been made to produce a limited quantity of a new product, but before a full-scale national launch is made. So this involves in promoting and selling the product in a limited geographical area, and the recording consumers' reactions and sales figures. To be reasonably accurate, the region selected must reflect as closely as possible the social and consumer profile of the rest of the country so it can succeed. So this test marketing really reduces the risk of the new product launch failing completely, but evidence is not always completely accurate if the total population does not share the characteristics and preferences as the region selected. Okay, this final approach involves directly asking consumers or potential consumers for their options and preferences. There were 2 questions asked in a survey of shoppers as an example. The first one says, how many foreign holidays did you take last year? And the second one says, what do you look for an ideal foreign holiday? The first one is to obtain quantitative data. And the second question is designed to find out the key qualitative features of a holiday that would influence customer choice. But there are 4 main problems you take last year, and the second one says, what do you look for an ideal foreign holiday? The first one is to obtain quantitative data. And the second question is designed to find out the key qualitative features of a holiday that would influence customer choice. But there are 4 main problems for market researchers to be aware of conducting consumer surveys is that who to ask, what to ask, how to ask, and how accurate is it. So who to ask, it is important to mention that sometimes it's too expensive or it is impossible to survey all potential members of target market, so it is necessary to select a sample. This means that it is a group of people taking responsibility of the overall of the group to represent them. So it is important to mention that who to ask. Sometimes it is impossible or too expensive to survey all potential members of the target market, so it is necessary to select a sample. That is a group of people taking in a market research survey selected to be representative over the target market. Well, it is important to mention that who to ask, that sometimes it is impossible or too expensive to survey all potential members in the target market, so it is necessary to select a sample. This means that it is a group of people taking part in a market target selected to be representative overall the target market. So, as I was saying, in nearly all market research situations, it is impossible to seek evidence from the total population. So this is either because the market is so extensive that contacting everyone it would be too expensive or time consuming, or it is impossible to identify everyone in that market. So a sample is needed. For example, the larger the sample, the more representative of the total population it is likely to be, and the greater the confidence can be placed in the final results.
As we know, the sample methods are ways of choosing the sample for market research, involving the question who to ask. One of them is the probability sampling, that involves the selection of a sample from a population based on the principle of random chance. Every member of the target population has an equal chance of being selected. It is more complex, more costly, and more time-consuming than non-probability sampling. Why? Because the sample is selected randomly, as I said before, and the probability of each unit's inclusion in the sample can be calculated. Very reliable estimates can be made out about both the whole target market and the chances of errors occurring. There are methods of sampling where each one has its own advantages and limitations, so the best one for your business depends on the size and financial resources of it, and how different consumers are in their taste between different ages, groups, and so on. The most common methods of the probability sampling are: the first one, the simple random sampling, states that each member of the target population has an equal chance
of being included in the sample, but to select a random sample you need a list of all the people in the target population. When you have the list, you need to give sequential numbers to each member of this population, and then a list of random numbers generated by computer. Another method is systematic sampling, where the sample is selected by taking every unspecific member of a series of numbers, or nth item, from the target population until the desired size of the sample is researched. Instead, the stratified sampling recognizes that the target population, called strata or layers of the population, may be made up of many different groups with many different opinions. So, for a sample to be accurate, it should contain a member of all these strata. For example, if you were asked to sample 50 students from a same school, it will be more accurate to split the school up into certain strata like class groups or gender, instead of asking only to a same group of friends. The quota sampling is similar to stratified sampling since it is when the population has been stratified and the interviewer selects an appropriate number of respondents from each stratum. However, the interviewer might be biased in their selection of people in each quota, so this makes quota sampling less probability-based than other methods. The difference between these two methods is that the quota sampling is faster, cheaper, but less reliable. The last method is cluster sampling, that is, when a full sampling frame list or target population are not available, for many reasons, like if the population is too geographically dispersed. The sampling will take a sample from just one or a few groups, not the entire population. This will help to reduce cost, but it is not fully representative. For example, a multinational company wants to research global attitudes toward its products. So, for saving money and time, they concentrate on just a few areas.
Okay, so in the questionnaire design, there are two ways of how to ask: the self-completed questionnaire or the direct interview. The self-completed questionnaire, they are either sent through the post or filled in by the respondents themselves on the spot. An advantage of this is that it is cheap to send out and the wide area can be covered, and there is no chance of bias creeping in from the interviewer to distort results. A disadvantage is that the response rate is usually poor, and questions could easily be misunderstood, and the sample return could be biased in favor of those respondents within the most spare time. And the direct interview are conducted by an interviewer. The skilled interviewers will avoid bias in the way they ask the questions, and the disadvantage of this is that it can be very expensive. How accurate is primary research? It might not be so reliable this way because of these three reasons. The sampling bias, that it is not 100% accurate, it is an estimation. The questionnaire bias, it is that when questions tend to lead respondents towards one particular answer, and other forms of bias, which might include the respondent not answering in a very truthful way.
Now, I'm going to talk about market research developments. Increasingly, businesses are turning to electronic means to gather the data their marketing strategies require. Not only questionnaires be sent out, answered, and returned over the internet, but firms can also access the vast quantity of information that electronic data retrieval methods offer them. For instance, pre-screen access panels with the results coming in within a few days, giving people the opportunity to respond conveniently by just using their phone. Or the mobile phone method of surveys can use recorded messages to which people can respond by using the numbers on the keypad. On the other hand, a supermarket operates loyalty card schemes. By scanning the total number and type of goods bought by each consumer, the firms have a complete picture of what each consumer purchases, how often, their age, gender, and possibly their income. So,
electronic means have made it so much easier to contact a very wide range of potential consumers than the older methods of street service or home visits to interview people directly. Even small and medium-sized businesses can use electronic means of contacting large number of customers in a short time period.